Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. It's going to be a very active week with tracking the tropics. We have Invest 97L out here in the eastern Atlantic, soon to be tropical depression or even tropical storm Aaron, which is our next name out of the list of names of this hurricane season. And I do think this could become a powerful hurricane at some point. So first thing we'll go over is current conditions out here in the Atlantic. We'll take a zoomed in look at this system, go over the latest from the National Hurricane Center, compare all model guidance from overnight into this morning, and then we'll have a segment and we'll sort of geek out with you guys a little bit and discuss the environmental background of the Atlantic and how it does support a very strong hurricane eventually. And then we'll have a segment for steering currents. After that, we'll round it off with today's forecast, and then we'll do a Bible devotion at the very end of the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure it's going to work. I want to circle a couple things. That's not the color we want to use. We want to use this. So much better. We still have a lot of unsettled weather across the southeast and off the Gulf coastline, off the coast of like the Carolinas and Georgia. This was looking very interesting yesterday afternoon, but we don't think this is going to develop into anything tropical or anything like that. So we still have Invest 96L still doing its thing out here. Still has a shot to develop, but regardless if it does develop or not, it's going to continue to head further out in the North Atlantic. But the main show is this. Everybody out there has their eyes on this. This is a vigorous tropical wave and still technically an Invest right at this second as around 6:30 Eastern time. We'll have another update in about 30 minutes to about an hour. We'll see if they make an upgrade to a tropical depression or a tropical storm, which would be Aaron with an E, but it's blowing up some intense convection right here. So when I say convection on this particular image here, that means that, you know, these areas like in the yellows and the reds and the blacks and whites embedded in between those colors, this indicates colder cloud tops. So the stronger the storm activity, the taller the updrafts, the taller up they go, the colder it gets in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And this is reflected by the colors you see right here on your screen. So we got a lot of strong thunderstorm activity. Not totally organized, but still strong. So we get that back off your screen. We continue to move forward. The sun is coming up. This is the coastline of Africa. This is way out here in the eastern Atlantic. This is the beginning of the Caribbean, so this is the Lesser Antilles, Leeward Islands, Windward Islands, things like that. And this is our tropical wave. Has a nice curve to it, nice little cyclonic flow, and there's that blow up of convection right here. Well, we probably have some sort of lower level circulation or low level feature right underneath this mid-level convection, sort of just northwest of the Cape Verde Islands. And said, this has kind of been in that same area right here for a few days, but this is a very healthy tropical wave as the sun is rising on this system. So let's give you the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Let's make sure we don't have a new update, and we don't. So between now, I'm sorry guys, here we go. Between now and the next 7 days has a 90% chance of developing this red area into a depression or a named storm, but I do think it's going to develop much sooner than that. In fact, you look at the latest graphic from the National Hurricane Center as far as the percent chance for it to develop in the next 48 hours, 2 days, it has a 70% chance, and it's right here. And in the discussion, it says tropical depression expected sometime today or just very soon. And then the storm will probably develop a little bit later this week, but it could already be there with us. Like by the time some of you folks watch this video this morning or this afternoon, this could very well be Tropical Storm Aaron, and I will put a pinned comment underneath the video if it does upgrade to that. So let's look at all the model guys. What do we have from overnight into this morning? Let's start off with the Euro, and we're going to begin every run off with Wednesday morning. So you can see it up here because I am going to forget to mention the time and the day and the date and all of that. So Wednesday, August the 13th, etc. So this is a 1005 millibar low based off the Euro. Remember, I keep saying this, anytime you see that millibar number get close to 1000 or lower, that's, you know, a pretty strong low pressure. We probably have a tropical storm or stronger. Once you get into the 990s, 980s, 970s, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, right? So just want to get that out the way and put that on the table for you. As we get into Thursday, you know, there's not much strengthening with this. We get into Friday morning, and then we start to get into the 990s. It's a 996, but you're not having any, I would say, rapid strengthening or anything with the system yet. And then you get into Saturday morning, and it starts to flirt with the 980s at this point. So one would argue just north or northeast of the Leeward Islands here, Puerto Rico being right here, Hispaniola, Lesser Antilles, you might have a Category 1 hurricane, our first hurricane of the season. So we go on and switch gears, and we look at this now, a little bit closer to everybody, the Caribbean, the southeast coastline, and what does this thing do on this model run? Well, it kind of struggles a little bit, and I can explain why. I've seen this for a few days now. There's a little bit of dry air that tries to get into the system right here that I think will prevent it from exploding temporarily. But eventually it does begin to take off, and as soon as it gets really strong, like at this point, next Sunday, well, this coming Sunday, you can say now, 6 days from now, it begins to strengthen rapidly, 975 millibar low. It's probably a Category 2 hurricane, and then it begins to go kind of northwest. It's still not completely north yet. 955 millibar low. That's probably a major Category 3 hurricane, and it goes between Bermuda and the Carolina coastline as a 948 millibar low hurricane. That's probably a Category 3 or higher. It's a little bit closer to Bermuda than, say, the southeast coastline, but man, it's splitting the gap for sure. A little bit too close for comfort. That is a powerful hurricane. And finally, it begins to head just north, and then it begins to get a touch northeast. So it begins to do that recurve. No dramatic recurve, but it's definitely recurving. And then we take a look at my friends here in Atlantic Canada. I'm going to be covering the heck out of this for you folks. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland. This system on the Euro misses you guys. I mean, it's close. It kind of hits the southeastern portions of Newfoundland. But it doesn't fully hit you guys. But you guys really need to watch out for this system. This is not this Friday morning, but next Friday morning. So, close pass, and it heads on out, and it really doesn't bother a whole lot of anybody on that run. Okay, what about the GFS? This is still running. So for my folks up in Atlantic Canada, we're probably not going to have the entirety of this run for you. But same thing with the GFS starting out Wednesday morning, 1,003 millibar low. The Euro and the GFS kind of agree with that idea, and the GFS definitely does strengthen this a much, much, much faster. So by Thursday, we have a Hurricane 985. And I mean, this thing's already undergoing a good bit of intensification at this point. By Friday, this is a Category 1-ish 2 hurricane or so. And hanging a little bit further south. But I mean, it begins to get into, let's go on and just drop it at this. Let's move forward. And we're going to get into Saturday morning. It's a 970 millibar low. That's probably a Category 2 hurricane. And I am guessing, you can try to get a good gauge on the category of these hurricanes based off the millibar, but it doesn't always equal wind speed. So just remember that. You can just kind of guess, right? 970, Category 2 or so hurricane probably. Could be a Category 3, but it's a strong hurricane. And it begins to continues to strengthen another 10, 12 millibars in like 18 hours. And then we get in this coming Sunday morning, August the 17th. And then this thing just is pretty much a Category 3 hurricane, major hurricane, as we get about a week out. So 1 week from right now, we could be talking about a huge hurricane in the Southwest Atlantic, but it's beginning to turn. Okay, Bermuda's this little speck right here, and it makes a way too close of a pass to Bermuda here as a sub 950 millibar hurricane. That would be a major hurricane for sure. You look at the run before this, and it was a little bit further west. And so it's ticked back east. It's good. The further we can get this thing to tick east, the better. Okay, and then it really dramatically turns northeast after that. And I mean, I can sit here and look at this all day, but I mean, at the end of the day, this thing doesn't even hit Atlantic Canada because it turns northeast faster than the Euro. Okay, so you're probably thinking, well, this is all good news. I would say be careful. Let's not make any assumptions yet. Okay, what about the Euro AI model? It's been stubborn. It wants to keep this thing very weak through the weekend. And then we get to right here, finally begins to get stronger. You need this thing to get strong fast, guys, I'm telling you. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'll explain that here in a second, but you want this thing to get strong fast as a higher chance of recurving if it does. But the Euro AI model just kind of continues to sort of struggle with getting this thing strong fast, and it's still around a tropical storm weak Category 1 hurricane and really close to like the Turks Caicos Islands, for example. But eventually it does get into hurricane status, and as soon as it strengthens, it begins to turn north. But, by the time it does turn, it's way too close to that Carolina coastline. and it's continuing to move north and northeast, and it still recurves, but it does not recurve soon enough to avoid Atlantic Canada, and this goes right into portions of Newfoundland. So what do you gather from all that? Well, you take that we obviously have a strong tropical wave out there, and borderline tropical cyclone if it's not one right now. It's going to sort of maintain itself across the Atlantic. Once it gets into the southwest Atlantic, it's probably going to take off. But as soon as it takes off, it's going to want to gain latitude and really try to recurve, regardless of ridging on top. I'm going to speak on that. That's what you take from that, okay? In any of those words I said, I did not make a conclusion. It's going to recurve or it's going to hit anybody. But that seems to be the trend right now. And it has been over the entire weekend. But if we look at, I'm going to take a different look at this. So if you've been tuning in for a while, you'll notice this looks a little bit different. This is the Euro ensemble from overnight. And I'm going to put this in motion here. And we're going to go all the way out to the entirety of the run. So I believe this is 10 days out. Goes 10 days. So you see a bunch of squiggly lines here. Some are kind of racing off, this way. Some are getting a little too close from comfort. And what I want you to notice is the ones that get too close for comfort here are slow. They are very slow. That's because they're probably weaker in the shorter term. But they get a little bit too close for comfort for the eastern U.S. But the bulk of these members turn out to sea. Some of them turn slow. Some of them turn fast. But this little kind of middle sort of black line, that's kind of the ensemble average of the members and where they are. Okay, and that's Bermuda's right here. So Bermuda really needs to watch out for this system. Everybody does, but that is a strong signal for recurving out to sea. Just keeping it real with you guys. And this is the GFS ensemble, and it looks very similar. Both of them are pretty locked in, but you got a few members that get really close. So. And I will tell you guys, before we move a little bit deeper into this, and here's a closer look at the Euro ensemble and all its members. Every single one of these are a hurricane. But we got a few. These are outliers, but we got a few that just do not want to recurve, a little stubborn. We need these going to recurve. So, we still got a lot of tracking to do. But, obviously the trend is for this to recurve. You got to continue to tune in because you never know. We have Irma, for example, Florence, both of those storms, and models have improved greatly since then, but both of those storms showed something very similar. But I will tell you, a good percentage of storms that gain this much latitude out here in the tropical Atlantic end up recurving. Okay, so let's geek out with you guys a little bit, discuss the environmental background of the Atlantic. And this is just as important, it's more important than everything else I just showed you. So the first thing we'll look at is dry and moist air. Dry air is in brown, moist air is in green. So, in the short term, and we're going to start off tomorrow afternoon, this is going to be plowing into a large area of dry air. The moist air is from the tropical system itself, right? So I think this will prevent it from strengthening at a pretty quick clip initially. So, we get all the way to right here. This is when it begins to get into a more favorable upper wind pattern. So it can guard itself a little bit more. It gets right here and a little bit of dry air gets involved. So you can actually see right here, 989, then it bumps back up to a 991 right here. A little bit of dry air gets involved, and then this is really when that upper wind pattern just fully gets this storm going, and that's why it deepens to a 963. But in the short term, dry air will prevent it, like in the next few days, from really taking off probably, and like into a hurricane or something like that. But we could be wrong. And another reason for that is that if you look at sea surface temperatures, the system's probably right in here right now. That's 25, 24, 26 degrees Celsius. You convert that to Fahrenheit, folks. That's only like the upper 70s. So, that will support a tropical system on what it currently is. It would kind of support it, but it's not going to allow it to really rapidly strengthen at a moderate pace, or it's not going to allow it to strengthen much at all. Now, one thing that is working with this system right now is a little bit of pulse of rising air kind of working aligned with this system. This is giving it an extra boost too. But still, it's going to need to work into this area, which is much warmer sea surface temperatures. You know, it gets warmer and warmer, 27, 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius. You start to get into the 80s, mid 80s, even upper 80s once you get into this area right over here. Okay, so you got that in the short term, short to medium term. Now, let's work a little bit closer to the Southwest Atlantic. Well, we are in the Southwest Atlantic, okay? Caribbean, you know, Southeast coastline. So we'll go back to the moisture and dry air here. And I do want to reiterate this. Watch this. 988 millibar low kind of weakens a little bit. Like it kind of goes, well, let's look at this. 989, 991, 991, 988, 989. Why is it sort of struggling to strengthen in this area? Well, it's because you can see a little bit of dry air kind of getting involved into the system. You can see that dry air. It's kind of moist on this side and then sort of dry on this side. But as soon as it taps in and realizes almost like it's literally like a human out here alive, it kind of realizes that the upper wind pattern is very stagnant. It allows for divergence aloft, a lot of flow to be expanded out from the center of the system, and then it takes off like a rocket. And that's why you see that number dramatically drop, which means we have a deepening, strengthening low pressure, and then it fully surrounds itself and cocoons itself with moist air, and it turns into a monster hurricane out here off the coast of the eastern U.S. And it has a very moist, tight, cocooned environment at this point. So it does that because this, if you look right here around Saturday morning, this is, you know, northeast of the Leeward Islands, 989 millibar low. So strong tropical storm category 1 hurricane if this model's right. So if you look at the flow right here, a lot of air being dispersed out. You can tell the environment's in the process of improving, but you also got some air kind of being worked up against it, even right here. So kind of on the southern and eastern flank of this storm, a lot of air is being dispersed outward. That allows for more air to rise, gets pushed out, more air to rise. But, you know, on this side of the storm, not really working as well, and that's why you see dry air sort of get into the system. But you move this forward, I want you to watch how things change. And what you're looking at here, I'm sorry, is 200 millibars. Winds at about 40,000 feet up in the air above the actual mid to low level circulation of this system. So once you move in here in time, the upper air pattern sort of shifts a little bit. And basically the entire weekend, this coming weekend, this thing begins to explode in strength. So at this point, we are, let's stop it right here, into 1 week from today. This thing is in the process of strengthening. And that is because it really works into a really, really low shear environment. There's not a ton of flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So it almost in a way creates its own environment. And it's able to just kind of disperse air out and sort of work as an exhaust system a lot better on the top of the storm. So it just pulls air away, and you can see it with these little lines with the arrows embedded into them. You see how the air is kind of working this way and then dramatically goes down like this, like that. And we got to watch this little feature right here. That's interesting. But doing like this and a little bit of flow working against it here. But this thing has an environment that's basically pushing air out away from the system. This allows for more air to rise, pushes out more air to rise. And rising air allows for shower and storm activity. Shower and storm activity, convection, creates a moist environment. A moist environment protected fully from dry air could allow for this thing to undergo RI, which stands for rapid intensification. So very low shear environment to really narrow that down. Doesn't have a lot of wind shear to deal with, so it kind of can take advantage and almost create its own upper wind environment, if you will. And you can see the outflow kind of from the system going down like that across the Caribbean. So explosive environment for explosive strengthening. You want to watch these little features here, but yeah. And then the sea surface temperatures, if this system is working kind of through, not a good color. If this system is working kind of into this area right here, or even into this area, or maybe a little bit closer, either way, all those areas I just did goes through 29, 30, 31, even some cases degrees Celsius water, sea surface temperatures. I mean, that's well into the 80s, some areas upper 80s, maybe even 90-degree reading or two out there. Of course, the Gulf continues to pop off with warmth, pretty much just a hot tub out here, not even comfortable to swim in anymore. So it's just a ticking time bomb in the Gulf. So we hope that we don't get anything here. But this system does not look like it's going to get into the Gulf. We talk about steering currents, and we're going to switch gears. I know I keep switching back and forth with how to explain this graphic-wise, but I think now that we're a little closer, it shows up a little bit better. So we're going to explain why most model guidance turns this out to sea. First off, sort of the warmer colors on your screen, in this case, the yellows, and certainly once you get into the orange and almost the red up here, the more this kind of shade of yellow goes to more orange and red, this is stronger ridging. So it's going to influence the steering currents more the stronger the ridging. And then that blobs of blue, that's low pressure. This is high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, low pressure. So there's a steering current around that too. So now that you know that, this is the low pressure itself, the tropical system, which is a low pressure. It's in blue right here. Okay, so the flow around this, what I want to add, I'm going to say it multiple times. Weak ridging is going like this. So the flow is kind of going like that, going like that. And then there's a little bit of flow on top of this weak ridging going like that. So I just want you guys to kind of understand the flow around ridging. And listen, this isn't the best example of it because the ridging right here is so weak. I mean, it's not very strong. So I want to add that right off the dot. So here's our actual system right here. All right. Now this weak ridging will steer a relatively weak system east to west initially. But as we move here in time, okay, this thing begins to strengthen. And yeah, I mean, the ridging could strengthen on top of the system, but in general, there's just not a lot of flow here. There's not a lot of ridging influence. There's not a lot of troughing influence, and that's why it just backs up what we just explained with the upper wind pattern, because there's not like a tut to pull it in one way or cold front. There's not, which you wouldn't expect a cold front way out here. There's not a strong ridging influence. This thing's just able to just explode in strength and inevitably gain latitude. So you stop it here. This is next Saturday. I mean, you just see white right here. So there's still some weak ridging in place, but it's so weak it's not even showing up on the 500 millibar chart here. So it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to head north. And it almost looks like it's surrounded by weak ridging. So what happens here? Well, there's a few things that could happen. One thing I know for sure that happens is this thing strengthens into a powerful hurricane. A powerful hurricane, regardless of how strong the ridging is on top of the system, say if there was very strong ridging right here, it's going to still try to gain latitude. I don't care what anybody says. It's still going to try to gain latitude. It's going to fight to get north with everything it has. It's kind of just that forward momentum, right? That polar movement of these low pressures. So with this being relatively weak ridging, it's definitely going to go right into it. You're like wondering, well, why is it going right into that yellowish color? That's ridging. Wouldn't it steer it west? No, I mean, that's weak. That's weak sauce. It's ridging-wise. So it's just going to go right into that. Now, one could add that this kind of trough right here, digging down, is kind of breaking up the ridge, or the stronger ridging is kind of shifting further out in the Atlantic over here, and one could say that too. The positioning of the ridge is changing. The strength of the ridge is changing. Honestly, I don't even know if the strength of the ridge is really changing here. I mean, I think it's getting weaker and allowing this to turn more. I think it's honestly just more so the fact that it gets so strong and there's not very strong ridging in place to begin with to keep this thing going west. I think it helps to keep it from dramatically turning. Okay, because, the flow's kind of going like this and like this, but that's not very strong flow. So I think because it gets so strong, it just kind of begins to turn. Now, I don't think this thing's going to come up here, really strengthen, just go like that. It could, especially if this ridge trends weaker or something. I think the fact that maybe some ridging builds on top of the system, like you can see the flow kind of going like this, a little bit stronger of a ridge of high pressure. I think this is going to kind of force this west a little bit, not to move west maybe, but it's going to prevent it from, I think, turning dramatically like this out to sea. It's going to kind of go, it might go like this, like that, or if the ridge changes, it kind of can go like that. Or listen, it is still not out of the realm of possibility that this thing goes out and does like this and hits everybody in the East Coast. We cannot rule that out. So eventually this thing just turns out to sea and then rides the upper portion of this ridge and it's gone, gets caught by the upper jet, and that's it. Now I do want to watch some sort of trough that shows up here, this could help yank this system in or push it out. It just depends on the position of the trough. But in general, the reason I keep saying you want this to really strengthen in the short term, the faster it strengthens, the more it's going to gain latitude. Okay, if it stays weak for a long period of time, for example, this thing's still like, a tropical storm, like, right here, it's probably going to drift a little bit further west. Okay, it's going to be steered more by lower level wind currents. Okay, the stronger the storm is, the taller it is, the more it feels the upper wind currents. So, that makes sense. In general, what you gather from all that I just said, there's not a very strong high pressure on top of the system. And I mean, there's just not. And could that change? Absolutely. Could some other feature come down and yank this inland? Absolutely. But for now, a recurving scenario, if you had to ask me, what do you think is going to happen? Like, you have to choose. I would say it would recurve. If I had to choose. Okay? That's not me forecasting that. That's saying, if someone said, dude, you got to. That's what I would choose. So, moving past that, let's see if we got a new update or anything like that. We don't. So, let's talk about today's weather. We got a big surge of moisture going across the central plains right now, even some flash flood warnings in northern Oklahoma. So, I can't stand when it does a little glitch like that. So, we're going to pause it. But big chunk of rain right here, storm activity. We got rain dancing around the Carolinas. It just continues to be soggy. And it's going to be soggy over the next few days. It's keeping our temperatures down. But man, I feel like I haven't seen the sun for more than 10 minutes here in South Carolina in about 10 days. So a lot of rain surging across the upper Midwest. Not everybody's getting it. A little real rain, little bit of rain up here in northern Montana, northern North Dakota. But watches, warnings, and advisories. Ridge is spiking across the west. So, you got all these heat alerts, extreme heat watches. We got extreme heat warnings in the valley regions of the Pacific Northwest. Down here in the Southwest, heat advisories in the orange. We even got heat advisories up here in Maine, New Hampshire, northern New York. But remember, the criteria for temperatures is much lower up here in the north. Flood watches are ongoing right now across the middle of the country. We have flood watches also up along the Carolina and Georgia coastline, and some heat advisories down here in the southern Mississippi River area. As far as Storm Prediction Center outlook, we do have a marginal risk up here for the upper Midwest and one down here for New Mexico, Texas, and a very small section of western Oklahoma. Excessive rainfall outlook, we do have a slight risk for excessive rainfall here from Texas to Oklahoma into southwest Missouri, southeast Kansas. And then we have a risk of flash flooding for the panhandle of Florida and the Carolina coastline also. Speaking of the southeast, this is what it looks like here, and we continue to move forward here. We get into this afternoon, just waves of rain, tropical downpours, just a continuous pattern that supports a lot of flow from the Gulf and off the coast of the southeast. So this is what the radar could look like around 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon. A lot of rain for the panhandle of Florida, rain scooting across Georgia, a little bit of activity in Alabama. Once you get into Mississippi, things begin to dry out, warm up. The Carolinas will continue just to get waves of rain. Some will get a lot, some won't get hardly anything at all, but we'll certainly watch for this. So we continue to move forward here. If you hear any dogs barking in the background, it's that time of the year, it's school year, where I'm taking like half the neighborhood to school. New kids coming in right now that my Beagle does not see much, so she might be barking. But anyways, getting into this afternoon, nothing really going on for the Northeast. I mean, it's nice weather. Just hot. It's pretty warm for late summer standards, but nothing, rare or anything like that. Down here in the south central U.S., some tropical downpours dancing around along the Texas and Louisiana coastline. And then as we get into this evening, we got to watch for some strong thunderstorm activity in eastern New Mexico. As you can tell, the panhandle of Texas, a little bit of storm activity in Oklahoma. This could definitely get some flash flooding. Not a lot of motion in the atmosphere, so this could dance around for some areas for too long and produce some flash flooding. You see those storms late tonight in the panhandle of Texas. And then we're going to wake up to probably another area of storms in central Oklahoma tomorrow. So up here in the north central U.S., we start to get into this afternoon, this evening. Some thunderstorms will kind of move through North Dakota. A little bit of action in northern Missouri, southern Iowa. We take it into this evening. line of storms could be working its way through Minnesota. A little bit of storm activity in the Midwest you see down there. And then we take it into tomorrow morning. Probably going to wake up to more thunderstorm activity across the Great Lakes region. Maybe a little bit south of areas dealing with it this morning. Out west, big ridge. So that means not a lot of flow to get any thunderstorm activity going, but it's going to be hot. So if you're a big heat lover out here in the Pacific Northwest, enjoy this late summer surge of heat. Temperatures, I mean, if you're not socked in clouds, rain, you're going to warm up nicely. This is a good example of this. The Carolinas, Georgia, 80s for highs. Some areas might not get out to 70s. Very humid. It's not like this crisp fall air mass with highs in the upper 70s. Definitely not. But definitely as far as actual temperatures, not super hot. Northeast getting hot, though. The valleys will get well into the 90s. I mean, it's going to be much hotter in areas of Maine than, say, South Carolina today. But surge of heat going up through the south central U.S., the Mississippi Valley, all the way into the Ohio Valley. And then the heat for the extreme western U.S., once you get west of the Rockies, it's flexing. Sacramento Valley, definitely getting to the low 100s, so hot temperatures. So, let's do a Bible devotion. And I'll be honest, guys, I didn't really prepare for this one much. I slept in the day. My routine has been switched up where I'm getting up early and not sleeping in on Mondays anymore, but I failed to do that. So shame on me. But, sometimes you got to listen to your body and sleep in a little bit. And sleeping in for me is like 5:15. So some people probably who have an 8 to 5 job probably wake up at 7 o'clock. I don't remember the last time I woke up that late, to be honest. No offense to anybody who does that. Just not capable of doing it. But this morning, 2 Corinthians, and I do want to share this. This is the devotion that we're doing for my soccer team, and I've challenged my kids to on the soccer team to memorize this. And if they do, they'll get them a piece of candy. So coach has to memorize it too. So it's 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 5. It says, "For just as the sufferings of Christ overflow to us, so also through Christ our comfort overflows." So, it pretty much says that, we're going to struggle in this life. It's going to be a struggle. Kind of reading through some things that I did look up, it says, that encourages believers to find hope and strength and God's comfort, even in the face of adversity, knowing that their suffering is not meaningless and that they are not alone in the struggles. And you're not. I mean, guys, you think about the struggle that Jesus went through. The ultimate struggle, the ultimate suffering. I mean, physical, emotional, the heartache he experienced, the physical pain he experienced. So we're not exempt from that. We're called to go to God and seek comfort for Him. And that, in a way, not in a way it does. It basically tests how genuine our faith is through the struggles of this life. And listen, hard times kick my rear end too. I mean, they do. I can say that, I'm strong enough in my faith where when something bad happens, I'm not going to be necessarily mad at God. But, you sit there and you're like, man, when is the blows of life going to stop? Because as you guys know, I think this is a universal thing. It does seem like when one bad thing happens in life, another one follows and another one follows and another one follows. I have a theory that you don't ever need to go on vacation during the summer because it seems like every time you come back, everything in the house is broke. My neighbor did that after we did, and they came back and their microwave was broke, their dryer was broke. I don't know what happens to your house. I know I'm getting off track here. When you go on vacation during the summer, but it seems like you come back and everything is broke, whether it's your AC, a ceiling fan. I mean, all that happened to us. So it's weird. Anyways, I'm getting off track. What I'm going with that is, though, when all those things continue, keep happening in a very small amount of time, you just, sometimes you can get negative instead of go to God for comfort. Sometimes it's kind of like you hit a crossroads, right? You can go one way, be extremely negative about it, or you can go the other way and seek God, seek His comfort. Because if you do talk to God, guys, I'm telling you, you're going to feel better. It doesn't make the problem just vanish, but you're going to feel better about it. You're going to approach it better. You're going to just handle it better. So that's all I got. God bless all y'all. We'll do it again this evening. And buckle up. We got a lot of tracking to do. Things are going to continue to be active. We'll be talking about this for a while. Obviously, the attention will drop off if confidence increases that this is going to recurve, but we're going to keep on talking about it because we've seen some weird stuff happen out there with steering currents for sure. So you'll have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon. God bless.